Hello there and welcome to Cansanity. Today we're going to talk about how to grow squash in a 3 by 3 by 18 inch deep garden box. Now in my garden box I have growing 1 acorn squash plant, a Hubbard, and 3 butternut squashes. Now I have decided this year that I was going to grow my butternut squash up on a trellis. So we're going to zoom in close so you can take a look and see what that looks like. Okay, so I'm standing behind my squash plant, or my butternut squash plants, and I have growing on this trellis 3 butternut squash vines. Now, one of the vines has grown all the way to the top and it's come over to the side, so I easily could have gone up another 2 feet on this trellis. And so next year I will actually grow the butternut squash on an 8-foot trellis, but this is a 6-foot trellis. And it's August 1st today, and so there's still a good 30 days at least for this plant to grow. So I'm expecting that it's going to end up growing actually down the trellis as well. Now I already have 3 nice sized butternut squash vegetables on the vine. And now if you take a look up close here, we'll come in close after, but this butternut squash here, it started to get, it's the size where you're going to have to put some additional support, because if you just leave it on the vine and don't give it some additional support, then the actual attachment, the peduncle, let's say, I know that's what it's called on a pumpkin, so we're going to call that on the butternut squash, that's firm, that's not going to break off or anything. But what's going to happen is the stems on your butternut squash, if there's any kind of bend in it and it's adding extra stress because of the squash, it could possibly break at the stem. So what I like to do is use some nylon or some cheesecloth, and I just create a little sling, and then I tie it above where the squash plant might have come through, and just give it a little bit of an extra support. Now nylon is great because it continues to stretch as the squash grows. So if you use cotton instead of nylon, make sure that you watch that and adjust it or give it extra room so that it has some chance to grow on the trellis. So I just wanted to show you from this point of view that what the trellis looks like. I'm going to actually assemble another trellis in the backyard that I'm going to use next year for my squash, and so you'll see how I put it together. But before we do that, I want to just zoom in on my largest butternut squash, just so that you can see what that looks like. Okay, so I just wanted to show you, give you some perspective that here's my hand in with this butternut squash, and like I said, it's August 1st. There's still at least a month where this squash can grow, and so I've tied the nylon support up a square, and I'll watch that to see if I need to adjust that and give it a different type of support as the squash grows. And what I mean by that is this nylon is already pretty stretched because I put it on a couple weeks ago, and so I might give it a little bit more room, and by putting a new nylon on it. So on this vine I have growing 3 nice sized butternut squash. I'm not sure if I'm going to get any more on this vine this year, these vines this year. Now we have, because this is growing in a box that has a 3-foot by 3-foot interior size by 18 inches, we do fertilize this box, and because there's a lot going on in here. I have 5 squash plants, so once a week since the beginning of July, we've started to fertilize the squash. Right, so I'm standing in front of one of the boxes that I have in my backyard, and this is where I plan to grow my butternut squash up in next year. And so I have started already to assemble my trellis, and I'm just going to tell you now about the different pieces that you're going to need if you're going to try to grow, make one of these trellises. So you're going to want to have some rebar, and we like to use the 36-inch rebar because we like to, once we put it in there, we don't want to have to worry about that trellis falling over. And so we buy the 36-inch and we go down 18 inches. And that means that that's not going anywhere. In fact, you won't be able to get it out. So choose your site carefully. Now, if you're planning to put trellises in your front yard, make sure that you call and get your locates marked before you pound anything into the ground. So know where your gas line, your electricity, know where all those lines are before you pound anything into the ground. And most of your locates should be in the front yard. So now this is my backyard, and I've already put in I've already put in all of my rebar, and I've already put in 3 of my electrical conduit for the upright supports. So now I have in my hand a 10 foot electrical conduit, half-inch pipe, and I need to cut mine to 8 feet because that's what I've decided I'm going to grow, what size I'm going to use here on this for these trellises. Now I'm actually having, I have 2 trellises here. This is not just going to be all one. I've decided that I wanted to have 2 so that in future years, if I only want to grow something up on one part of the box, that I can just have one trellis over in that one section. The other reason why I decided to do 2 is that if I put a post or a pole pipe on each corner of this box and then joined it across the top, once the fruit or vegetables started to get a nice size, it's going to put a lot of pressure on the top support. So it's just best to break it up, either join them, put a support in the middle, or like do what I'm doing and put 2 trellises side by side, and then you have a lot of flexibility in what you're going to do in the years to come. So now you're going to need to get the rebar in the ground. You're going to need a hammer or a mallet so that you can get it started, and then we use a post pounder to get the rebar right in the ground. So now, depending on how soft your ground is, you might not need the post pounder. And if you're planning to do this next year, I really like to suggest that you go out and get your supplies this year if you can find some, so that you're ready, so that you can even get your rebar in the ground this fall when the soil and your ground is softer, and then you're ready to go. I'd like to get, if I'm going to do a new box or a new trellis, I like to get that ready the fall before, so that in the spring and early summer I'm ready to go. So now that I've talked about all the pieces that you're going to need, we're going to move over to the workmate, and I'm going to show you how to cut the electrical conduit. Okay, so I've put the electrical conduit in place on my workmate and tighten it down. It's easy to cut the conduit when it's fastened tightly, and so that's been done, and I've measured out where I need to cut and marked it, and it's marked at the 8-foot mark, and then I have my hacksaw, and now we're ready to cut. Okay, so to get started, just bring your hacksaw to the back there and just mark your spot where you're going to be cutting. And then just start sawing. Really hang it in there. There. Okay, we're done. Now this is very sharp, and so I like to put the sharp part in the ground, and so I'll put some tape on that just so that I know that that's the part that I'm going to put in the ground, and I put the tape on there so that it doesn't cut me when I'm moving it around. Okay, so I just wanted to show you that the rebar is pounded in the ground 18 inches, and so that is just really solid. That's not going anywhere. And so then to put the conduit over top, it's just easy. You just have to slide that on. And what's great about building a trellis this way is you have so much flexibility to moving that trellis to another location. Now that rebar will stay in the ground. I'll leave it there and I'll use it for years to come. And I chose to put the trellis on this side of my box because when you're sitting in my yard, and if I decided not to have this trellis here, you're not going to see that rebar here. You'd have to come to the back of my yard to see it. So I choose the sites wisely when I decide where I'm going to put my trellises, so that if I decide to do something different the following year or years to come, it's not an eyesore. Okay, so I have all my conduit cut, and I have the elbows in place. I haven't tightened anything down because I have to put the rest of my nylon netting on. And so to do that, cut it so that it's close to what you're going to need. And so I know that I'm going to need a little bit extra here, and so I just like to just cut a little bit, go a little bit bigger than what I need, and then I'll just trim it afterwards. And then you're going to just thread it through. And so the way that you thread it through is that start at the top and just thread. It's like basket weaving. You just go on the outside, inside, outside, inside. And so we'll get up closer so that you can see exactly what I'm talking about. But I just went in and out, and in and out, and in and out. So then that's the top. And so I'll continue to thread the netting down both sides, and we'll get up close so you can see what that looks like. Okay, so the mesh is on the trellis, and I just wanted you to see up close that this part is behind and then this is in the front, and that's what you're going to do, alternating the whole trellis. And then at the top you just kind of wrap it around at the top. Now all I have to do is tighten down the elbows, and this trellis is ready to be used. Okay, so my trellises are done, and so I'm ready to go for next spring. I plan on having my growing my pumpkin on this side and my butternut squash on this side, and I can't wait to see how they do in this location next year. Now, if you're enjoying the videos, please subscribe. If you subscribe, then you'll get a notification every time I do a new video. And if you have something to say, please put a comment on the video as well. And if you haven't checked out Cansanity.com, please go to the website and check it out. I'm putting new recipes on that website every week, and there's some fantastic recipes there. Now, all the links to all the YouTube videos are also in the video section on Cansanity.com. So if you haven't seen them all, go to the website and check them out. So I hope you've enjoyed this video. Have a great day.